Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Norway Chess, the most exciting chess tournament of the year, in my opinion. Now, apologies for the fact that I look very weird, like the color of my room and my camera, very weird today. Don't know what's going on. But that is not important. We have Gukesh versus Magnus Carlsen. Yes, the world champion versus the world number one today. We have Wei Yi versus Arjun Erigaisi, and we have the Battle of the Americans, Hikaru Nakamura versus Fabiano Caruana. Let us start with the classical games. Now, the way Norway Chess works, they play a classical game. If that game ends in a draw, they play Armageddon, so there is always someone who wins. If you win in classical, you get 3 points. If you win in Armageddon, you get 1.5. If you lose in Armageddon, you get 1, and if you lose in the classical, you get none. Simplified, I'm sure we'll all get used to it as it goes on. Let us turn on the engine. Right, Wei Yi has got the white pieces against Arjun Erigaisi. And we have e4 and e6, a French defense. They have 2 hours on the clock for the classical portion, and Wei Yi elects to play the Tarrasch version of the French defense. So we get c5 immediately. We get knight g to f3, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and now knight c6, bishop b5 pinning the knight, and bishop to d7. And this is a French defense. We have not elected, obviously, to push this pawn, which was an option. We're keeping this tension here for both sides. We're pinning the knight. Now this knight is hanging in the center, so we play knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, and black has actually got off quite nicely here. The way Arjun has played this and Wei Yi has played this, we've traded off black's bad bishop, the bad French bishop. This knight is blocking in this bishop, and white can castle though. Black still has to get all of their kingside development, but they do have an open b file. The queen is active, so black's actually not too bad here. They've equalized fairly nicely. White here plays c4. This is all standard theory. We get knight f6, queen a4. You might say, isn't this pawn hanging? Your king's in the center and that pawn's hanging. So we get queen c7, c takes d5, e takes d5, a very bold choice, short castles, and now bishop to e7, b3, just a nice move, going to catch out the bishop, short castles, and now bishop d2. You can see Wei Yi has spent some time. Arjun's still well within his prep. Rook fd8. This is the first move he really thinks a little bit, and has gotten to move 14. Rook ac1, just bringing the rook to the open file, and now queen f4. This is where I first saw the game. Queen to f4 just been played, puts pressure on the knight, and you've got a few choices of where the knight can go. Obviously, you can play bishop takes f6 as an intermezzo. The knight's hanging, but you take the bishop, so that comes the knight first. You can play bishop to c3, as stupid as it looks, and you can obviously also play knight to f3, but then you are kind of surrendering that pawn, but have compensation. So what does Wei Yi go for? He goes for e5, which is not preferred by the engine. It's still level. You attack the knight, so if you take my knight, I take your knight. So we get queen takes queen. I don't know how many of you saw that. Takes, and now we jump the knight into the center for another trade. So now these pawns are exchanged, and both of us have got weak queenside pawns. So probably after rook takes and the rook infiltrating, this is going to be a draw, as we just see a bunch of pawns fly off the board. If the bishops get traded, if the rooks get traded, it's a draw. Black does now have an outside pass pawn. So if anybody's going to win this, it's going to be Arjun. There's still lots of pieces on the board. White has a kingside majority, but the kings are already there, so it's not as impactful. Rook a3, we bring the rook forward, and now we don't trade rooks. Notice, we do not trade rooks. We want to continue to monitor this pawn. Trading rooks here is better for black, probably. The engine still thinks it's holdable, but practically, like, you get your rook locked in jail. Like, your rook has to come like to a1 if it wants mobility, maybe it's a2, and then these pawns you can't really push. And this pawn will be well defended, and now black can bring the king. White still has plenty of easy drawing this. So let's see. Rook ac8 was played. Now we push the pawn to try and disrupt the pawn structure. We take with check, king takes. We sacrifice the rook for the bishop to get this endgame for Wei Yi. and we trade the rooks because he believes this is drawing, and very much it is. h3 defends everything, we take, the rook can infiltrate, take, and you get here, and this is just a fortress. There's nothing black can do. You can push your pawn all the way. Wei Yi is going to hold this comfortably, or you can say Arjun holds comfortably because he did have the pieces. You just got to make sure you don't get yourself mated, and it does get close, but the rook can't mate. We eventually sacrifice the rook, and this is just a drawn king and pawn endgame. White will go somewhere here, takes, here, and this is just a draw. You can push the pawn. It's not going to matter. We're going to go all the way here and make a draw. So, this was the first game to end, and it ended in a draw. This was the only classical game in the men's section that ended in a draw. Spoilers. Now, we must go. We must go. Fabiano, Caruana, Hikaru, Nakamura. A rematch, really. These guys play each other so often, and we get a very interesting opening. An exchange Slav. Now, the exchange Slav is known to be very drawish. So let's see how these two play it. I mean, Hikaru was in the confessional a lot. He was up on time the whole time. We get this trade line. And we get this. And we maneuver the bishops. And we go here, rook c8. You can see the players spending very little time. Fabi's thinking. Hikaru didn't spend much time at all, really. And we got all the way here. And Hikaru was like, he got to this position and he was in the confessional and he said, probably you won't hear from me again. This looks pretty boring. The interesting game is Magnus Carlsen versus Gukesh. We will get to that in just a moment. But probably you won't hear from me again because we're probably going to make a draw. Like, this position looks very boring, very dead. But, you know, chess needs to be played. Chess needs to be played. Queen d1. Now we kick out the knight. Now we continue pushing. And you might say, wait, hang on. This pawn moves. Why can't you go back here? You can. You very much can. And your knight looks very nice here. But it's got no targets. And black is going to double up. And your knight might never have a way home. That's the thing. This bishop's in the way. So, yes, there's no pawn to attack it. But it also doesn't have a way home. Which is a problem. Because, you know, there could be various times where black wants to undermine these central pawns that are keeping it intact. Anyway. Fabi elects to go back to c3. And now Hikaru maneuvering his knights. We do have a bishop for a knight trade, if you recall from some of the earlier moves. And we get a very famous position very soon as we make a couple of adjustments. We get this. Alekhine's gun on the board. That is when you stack all the heavy pieces on one file. Alekhine's gun. Right. All the memes have been made. Hikaru's got 44 minutes. Fabi's got 13. Game's a draw. So we're just putting all of our pressure on this file. But that probably means, well, white's got everything defended really nicely here. We're going to trade everything and make a draw. 92. Takes. And now, if you want to make a draw, you just play here. And we go to this endgame. And this endgame should very much be holdable for white and black on both sides. But, after rook takes c2, we play bishop takes c2. We keep the queens on the board. And now the knight comes in. Now, the white queen does get the open file, but it's not going to matter because we get this trade. And knight takes, so we keep this in balance, which is important. Because there's always mobility for the pawns. If you do this and you lock everything up, there's a little bit less mobility. Anyway, queen takes c8, knight takes c8, and we go to this endgame. Now, surely you would think this endgame is holdable for either side after bishop to b1. Bishop b1 is a nice move because now this knight can't come forward. This knight can't come forward because the bishop patrols it. A bishop, 2 squares away from a knight, or 3 squares, I suppose, controls its forward movement. So this knight has to go backwards to go forwards. Just keep that in mind. It's very helpful in endgames. Bishop, knight d6. And now the question is, how is either player going to really win this as we push a bunch of pawns? The thing is, the bishop is nice. It's a long-range piece, but, and you see, Fabi's happy to give it up. And you might say, but why? Isn't the bishop sometimes better for a knight? Not in this. This is a very locked-up structure. You would imagine that Hikaru's knights are going to do much better than Fabi's bishop and knight. Because the bishop only fights on light squares. And you might say, but all these pawns are on light squares. Yeah? And are you going to just bribe Hikaru to let your bishop come and take all of them? You can't really get your bishop in. There's no entry points. The king's going to protect the base of the pawn chain. White has got more problems in their position. They've got really 3 weak pawns that Hikaru is going to put pressure on this whole game. Anyway, king d2. I mean, it's not winning for Hikaru by any means. You see there again, Hikaru could take the bishop. He doesn't want it. He knows that his knights in the long term are going to be better. And we maneuver and we maneuver. And this game keeps going. There was a period here. I just want to go back a couple moves. There was a period here. Where was it? Right when we got into this endgame. Yeah, it was about here, right? Hikaru's got 39 minutes. Fabi's got 7. So once they made the decision to go into this endgame, Hikaru did spend a lot of time. Not much. Look at Fabiano's time. He's got 2 minutes. Look at this. 2 minutes 48 versus 35 minutes for Hikaru. You cannot have this level of imbalance in terms of clock time. And Hikaru, you saw a while ago, pushed the pawn. Now, we're going to get to some point where you might have the 50 mover. These pawns need to move. You can't just keep rotating pieces. You need to take something or you need to push something. This knight is blockading this pawn. So that means black is the only one who can push pawns. And it's one of these moves. Unless they take something. Bishop b1. So this is probably a draw. Hikaru, according to the engine, is now -1. Knight f6. King e1. Knight king d6, and they continue to maneuver. They really do continue to maneuver. Hikaru gets lower and lower on time. Fabiano is basically playing on bonus time. He's got 40 seconds. He's got less than a minute. And we get all the way here. And there are several moves that hold here for white. The best are king to f2, because the knights are coming to put pressure on this pawn. So king to f2. King to e2 is also fine, because you will have the time to go over there. And bishop a6 is also fine, looking to maybe try and get in there and, bribe Hikaru to let you take all his pawns. Bishop a6 is not really the preferred choice. It is really king e2 or king f2. Unfortunately, in this position, Fabiano Caruana plays knight to a4, which is a huge blunder, because we're not going to h5 anymore. We're going to e4. And that knight is a problem. And knight takes e4 is a mistake that makes it even worse because of one move only. Which pawn do you capture with? If you take with the d pawn, the game is a draw. You have to take f takes e4. And now we make it even worse. We play knight to c3, which is an inaccuracy. And Hikaru Nakamura is completely winning. He simply plays knight to f5. How do you protect both pawns? You play king to f2. And now king b6. You give check, and now the king is in. Knight c5, the king is in. The knight jumps forward, we take. Yes, you can take that. My king is in. Ladies and gentlemen, Hikaru Nakamura wins. He wins this pawn. And yes, there's a check, and I have to give up my knight. I don't really, because I would have taken yours. And knight takes e6, the final one. It is now checkmate in 11. Checkmate is now unavoidable. We go here. And Fabiano Caruana resigns. Now we must go to the final game. Gukesh versus Magnus Carlsen. Magnus has got the white pieces. He plays d4. Knight to f6, and Magnus plays knight c3. This is a bit of a surprise. d5, bishop to f4. Magnus Carlsen plays the Jobaba London. How interesting. c5, e3. This is the way to play. We trade off the bishops, and we play knight takes e2. Knight c takes e2 even. Knight to f3, knight c6, knight to f3, e6, and now c3. Bishop to e7, knight g3, castles, queen e7. Magnus Carlsen does not want a castle. He has got some commitment issues after getting married. He does not know which way to castle, because he wants to keep flexibility open. If he decides to launch a kingside attack, he may want to castle long. But if Gukesh starts breaking through on the queen side, he'll just evacuate his king that way. So he's keeping the flexibility, and that's what's very nice in the London. Gukesh playing this as solid as you meant to. He played c5, he's brought his knight there, he's got his bishop there, he's traded off the light squared bishop so he can put all his pawns on light squares. He's done everything right. Magnus is a little bit down on time. h6 gets played. Now we play rook d1, so Magnus can on your castle, queen short. queen a5. And what does Magnus do now? There are a few moves that you can play here. You can play rook a1, shockingly enough. You can obviously play a3, and you can also play d takes c5. These are all valid options. Magnus Carlsen chooses to play a3, and now rook fd8, h4. There it is, Magnus striking on the king side. Queen a4. We plant our knight in the center, takes, and we kick out the bishop. The bishop drops back. Queen a6, offering a queen trade. We deny the queen trade, but in doing so, how do we castle? Magnus, how are we castling here? Bishop d6. We do not trade bishops right away. We want to trade on our terms, and that is by bishop takes f4, queen takes f4, not knight takes f4. Oh my gosh, look at Gukesh e5. That looks like it hangs a pawn. It doesn't, because if it takes, then there's queen g6, and you hit the knight. This pawn will be captured back, or there will be a pawn captured back. This can't last forever. Anyway, e5, queen g3. Now, checkmate is threatened on move 20, and in a shocking turn of events, Gukesh sees it and stops it, and we trade the queens. The knight drops back. E takes d4, c takes d4, and c4. Very bold choice from Gukesh to not keep the tension anymore between these pawns and electing to push the pawn. Knight to e2, b5, knight c3, knight to f6. And basically what's going to happen here is Gukesh has got some weaknesses. He's really pushed his pawns quite far. He's got some double pawns here. Magnus Carlsen has got a really perfect structure. All these pieces are together. He's got no pawn islands. And he's going to just aura farm until he wins an endgame because he's Magnus Carlsen. That's not my lingo. That's what I saw in the chat, and I really liked it. So, Magnus Carlsen going to be aura farming, going to use all his endgame ability to play this endgame. First, he plays rook b1, rook ab8, f3, a5, b4, en passant, rook takes b3, b4, takes, rook takes, we deny the rook trade, and now rook e8. Putting pressure, and now forcing king d2. King to d2. Oh, I went too far. King d2, check, and we force the king up. So no castling for Magnus Carlsen today, but he does lose this pawn. Why are there too many rooks on the board? Nah, it disappeared. Great. Rook takes a5. So Gukesh gives up this pass pawn, but he's going to try and say, well, I'm going to get stuff going here, and Magnus is going to get stuff going here. And someone will win, and someone will lose. Rook g3. Rook f1. G5. Takes. And now rook fa1. H5. Magnus, are you aware that that's happening? Rook a8. Takes. And now, shockingly, Gukesh does not blunder a piece. He brings his king up. What am I saying? There are only 3 legal moves in this position. That's king there, or dropping the knight back. I just thought it was really funny. The third line in the engine is +6. But, Gukesh plays a natural move. King to h7. e4. And now there's a few moves for him to respond with. But he takes, we take, and we push h4. So Gukesh has got 2 pass pawns this way. Magnus has got 2 pass pawns this way. e5. h3. We can ignore the knight because we're going to promote. E takes f6. h2. Now it's too late. Now it's too late because if Magnus wants to bring his rook back, rook g1, and you've got a problem. Black is now winning. So it's too late to go and try and stop the pawn. You can play f7 here, sacking the rook to get your queen, but there's no need to do that. So Magnus Carlsen, naturally, after here, we get h2. He plays f7 anyway. We get rook g3 check, king d2, h1 queen, f8 queen. It's still a draw. Although Magnus Carlsen is up +3 points of material, is up a knight. But probably Gukesh will find a perpetual, and the game will end in a draw. They've gotten here, Gukesh only has 23 seconds though. Magnus Carlsen a minute and 23 seconds, so 60 seconds more. And all of that leads up to queen h6 check, which is the wrong check. And now there's only one move for Magnus Carlsen to play. He doesn't find it. Allegedly. I see here in the computer it says king c2 is the only winning move. And he does find it, yeah. King c2 is the best move. Queen g6 check. And now, again, the only winning move is king b2. And now you've kind of run out of checks. So you can bring the queen over. King just keeps going. And we can give another check. The king keeps running. And you can go here and win the knight. Taking the knight is a bad move. Here it was already bad. It's mate in 23. This makes it mate in 25. Explain to me. Magnus Carlsen gives a check. King comes forward. Rook here. And another check. And king d5. I'm pretty sure king d5 was not the actual move played. I'm pretty sure it was put there because white wins. And the kings would have been put there and there. Magnus Carlsen defeats Gukesh D. He would have played rook e6 check. And the king would have been hunted out and mated somewhere in the middle of the board. Or the queen would have been won via rook check or something like that. And the game is over. But I have one more game to show you. Bonus game. It is the Armageddon game between Wei Yi and Arjun Erigaisi. Wei Yi has once again got the white pieces. e4. Let's make sure we have the engine on for this. Okay, e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, bishop c5, and it is a Roy Lopez, the Archangel's variation, or the classical variation. c3, knight f6, and d4. E takes d4, e5, pushing against the knight. Knight jumps forward, and now we castle. Knight drops back, and the thing is, this is an Armageddon game. What does Armageddon mean? Black wins if the game ends in a draw. So white has to push for a win. That's why we've got a Spanish on the board. And we're playing quite an aggressive line. Queen takes, and the knight comes out. And really, there's not much you can do. This is a Spanish. It is very symmetrical. There are only one or two real big differences. We're willing to give up this to get something, to maybe double or to take and have a different pawn structure. And Wei Yi needs to find something to play for to win. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to draw your attention before this move. Wei Yi's got 6 minutes, Arjun's got 5. Now, I don't know if you noticed right at the start, I might have gone too quickly. Wei Yi had 10 minutes, Arjun had 7. After this move, which hits the queen, Wei Yi's down on time. They do not get bonus time until move 40, and even then, it's not much. So, if he was going to try and flag Arjun, that plan has gone horribly wrong. Queen d6, knight d2, queen takes a3. He's given up a pawn, but he's getting some activity. Kicks out the queen, and now we can play c4 and bishop e6 and check, and here, and we get the fork, and knight b4, and queen drops back, and here. Now, what looks like the most natural move in this position for players rated fairly high, you would say c5. It's a blunder. The idea is obviously to take the knight. You disconnect the defense of it. The queen can't take because it's protected. Your bishop is still over there, bruv. So even though, yes, the queen can drop back and you can take the knight, which you can take this knight, it's no good because, like, king takes h7, so you haven't won anything. So the queen needs to maintain defense of that. So what we get in the game is c5. Here, knight out, and then we sacrifice the rook. We bring the bishop out, so we've got now -2 for black. We've tried everything that we can. The bishop comes out to save itself, and we're going here. And basically, we're going to try and do this and hope to win material. We're going to hope for the best in what is now a blitz game where Arjun is up 2 minutes on time. And we play b6, b6. I need to take a sip of water because I'm dying. b6. Blunders the game back to a draw, which is still not good enough for white, but it's better than what he had. The drawing move here is just c takes b6, which gets played. C takes b6, and then now you just play bishop takes b6. That's a free rook. Well, not free, but you're getting your exchange back. That's a rook. Like, you're taking a pawn, you might say, oh, but pin. Queen c5. Rook is trapped. Okay, now it gets out, maybe. I suppose, but now, now it's better for white. You play d6, and you're chilling. Instead of that, after c takes b6, c takes b6, he plays queen a3. An inexplicable move. And now b5, which is an inaccuracy, but it's good enough. The queen centralizes, and now g6, and you've got nothing. White's got nothing. We can take this pawn, yes, but now black has everything coordinated. They've got a dark squared bishop, cutting everything. They've got this bishop that's going to be open, 2 powerful rooks, and a king that is shockingly safe enough. And safe enough will do. We try and defend our pawn. That is the only thing we have. We deny a queen trade, but they just are going to double the rooks. They're going to bring the king to safety. And we get all the way here. Here, we kick out, we trade, we give a check, we go here. Wei Yi's trying, he's really trying. Queen a2, a5, and he takes on a5. But taking on a5 was too late. Here, Wei Yi lost on time after queen takes a5. It was already completely lost. For white, the game just got out of hand as he really had to push. And when you have to play for a win, sometimes you have to play for a loss. And Arjun Erigaisi wins the first Armageddon. So at the top of the leaderboard will be Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. Then will be Arjun Erigaisi. Then it will be Wei Yi. And then finally will be Fabiano Caruana and the World Champion Gukesh D. What a start to Norway Chess.